Now let's talk about multiplication. There are a lot of different ways to represent multiplication mathematically. So in this example, the product of 5 and x, I could write it like this. I can use parentheses, 5 and x. If they're both contained in parentheses like that, that means that these are multiplied together. That means the same as 5 times x. Or I could just have one of them in parentheses. If I had this, 5 and x, or this, 5 and x, those would both mean the same thing. All three of these mean the same thing. They mean 5 multiplied by x. I can use a small dot like that. That means 5 times x. Or no operator at all. If I just have 5x, that means 5 times x. What I would not do in algebra, or not do very often at least, is not use the little cross indicating a multiplication. In other words, I wouldn't write 5 times x, just because the multiplication symbol that we're used to in elementary arithmetic looks a whole lot like an x. In some cases, looks exactly like an x. And so that's just too confusing, so we don't typically write it that way. And that's okay because there's a lot of other perfectly good ways to write it. Simply writing it like that is usually the preferred way. So let's look at these other examples. 3 times n, we would just write that as 3n. And mathematically we understand that that means multiplication. The 3 and the n are multiplied together. Same thing here. Twice b, twice means 2 times, so I would just write that as 2b. The product of 5x and y, well, there's 3 things here, the 5, the x, and the y. All 3 of those are multiplied together. I would just write 5xy. And this x here is a variable. That's not a time symbol, so this doesn't mean 5 times y. What this means is 5 times x times y. And width times length, well, this is width multiplied by length, but we don't typically write it out like that. We typically use meaningful variable names. We would use a W to stand for width and an L to stand for length. So we might just write it like that, width times length, WL.